Welcome to the Journos on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Hugh McDonald, Michael Grant and Alison McConnell here with me in the studio to talk football domestically and a little further afield as well. Great to have Michael with us. It's got to be the happiest time to be. Can you still be a fan, Hugh? Is it okay to be a fan and say Michael's an Aberdeen fan without fear of retribution?
Well, there will be personal shame about that and disgust. There'll be self-loathing about it. You know, it's like there's survivor groups, isn't there? There's Aberdeen support groups.
No, I think there's reasons for my self-loathing. That's only one of them.
Do you get pelters
From
anybody?
It is, yeah, of course I do. And the thing is, because I'm down here and working fundamentally amongst non-Aberdeen supporters in press boxes, yeah, I get it pretty tight sometimes.
Right. Would you get abuse?
No, I'm talking about like from colleagues. It's not abuse. Seriously, I'm just talking about from colleagues who rip into me if Aberdeen are getting beat. You know, no, you don't get abuse from anybody else.
I didn't think so. I mean, we were talking about it the other day there. I wonder if Michael gets, you know.
I was referencing social media. Everyone gets abuse on social media.
Yeah.
Everyone gets
slaughtered on that.
But I've always thought though that if anybody who cares know that you support a certain team and it's not Celtic or Rangers, I think they're not really interested in you so much.
That's a good point.
I think if they suspect that you're one or the other, that's when you get it. I think if they know that I'm an Aberdeen supporter, they'll go, they'll dismiss you, you know.
Yeah, unless you're winning regularly.
Well, once the title charge really gains hold, then we'll see what I get.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if it's any consolation, we've already discussed it's about to come crashing down in October. That's usually the month when you lose it. Yeah. It's funny you saying that because it just depends on what you put out as well on social media. If you were a really in-your-face Aberdeen fan, I mean, with the hullabaloo that surrounded Oasis at 8 o'clock in the morning, I just thought I'd test. Twitter yesterday by just suggesting, okay, how can I test to see how poisonous and crazy Twitter is? So at 10 to, I swear to God, I just did this for a noise, all right?
It's not like it.
I know, sorry. I was banned after it. At 10 to 8, I posted a photograph of the Beatles, and I just said, the best band in the world ever, bar none. Hashtag the Beatles. Well, honestly, within 10 minutes, Michael, they're scalping me right, left and centre, and I went, for God's sake, it's only 4 guys from Liverpool, geez, peace. So think what it's like when you put sometimes Twitter can get you banned, Hugh. I speak from experience on this, you know, if you've got a real opinion.
But the whole thing is the frightening thing is giving a voice to the ones voiceless, and that you could potter about your day and you get the odd letter written to the Herald in green ink or
yours in sport.
Yours in sport, earning killing you in the sport. Then it got worse when email came in. And then when Twitter came in, it went completely off the scale, and it got to stages where, and we all know that. We were kind of shrugging off, police were getting involved, you know.
I reckon you would have been despised, and this is just as a kind of an outlook on it.
Thanks very much.
We're
only 5 minutes into the show.
My colleagues?
I reckon you would have been despised as a journalist if social media was about from about 1980 onwards. Is that fair comment?
100%. 100%. I don't think
especially when the Aberdeen went about their business, which was defiant.
They've been seen as a bit of a nasty team and all the rest of it, and their fans had their moments too, our fans. And so, yeah, absolutely. It would have been great, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you imagine the clip on Twitter? Fergie goes, the referees, West of Scotland bias, you name it. Can you imagine those little 10, 15-second video clips of Fergie just giving it to everybody?
Tweeting that night, that would have been magic.
I mean, and really the sophistication of all that as well, where he has, he's taken that on board, not as, people say, Fergie ranting anything. We know that sometimes he did rant. I mean, after the cup final was astonishing, but very measured in his thoughts about doing all that. And I always remember he was talking to him. I did a big feature with Fergie on Stein, and of course he was brilliant on Stein. But he was talking about how Stein had taught him to use things. You've got to use this. You've got to, if you've got anything in your favour. Right, and the thing in his favour was perceived West Coast bias. We're the underdogs, the despising it. Don't use that and fire into it. And the only thing Alex said that he didn't take for Stein always says, see, after a bad defeat or anything, even a bad victory, as a Scottish Cup final, don't do it in the dressing room that night. It was always Saturday nights. Wait till the Monday morning. And Alex said that was the only thing I never took from Stein. I had to do it on the actual night. I had to address it. I couldn't wait 24, 36 hours like the way Stein could.
And you know the funny thing about it, and I'll just leave you with this story on it, just on the basis of the lunacy of it all. I speak to so many of the great Aberdeen players from that great era, and at one point, you're talking about his immediate reaction to things. He couldn't let it lie, and he was always of the moment. And Alex McLeish, this sounds so outrageous when I'm saying it, I have to put myself in check, Michael, but Alex McLeish and Mark McGee nipped round to the corner shop to get sweeties because they're going on a trip down to Glasgow for Aberdeen to play. To which the manager comes on the bus and says, "Where's McLeish and McGee?" And they said, "Well, they're just round getting some sweets for the bus." And he says, "Leave them." Now, I don't know about you, but McGee and McLeish is like saying, "Just leave Beckenbauer and Muller. We're on our way," which is just ridiculous.
I like the idea that we won without them, but
But it's tremendous management. Because what you're saying is nobody is more important than the team.
Yeah, but Jimmy Thelin will not get sucked into that, which brings me nicely. See that segue there? You don't get that in the BBC, Michael, do you? You know,
Thellin's no picking either McLeish or McGee.
No, absolutely not. And by the way, what a feel-good factor with the Dons.
yeah, I mean, you were asking me a minute ago off air, have I been up? And I have been up to the last couple of home games, took my boys up, and it's magic at the moment, you know. I mean, and it feels like a bit of a relief after the last couple of seasons. It's been pretty dire over the piece, you know, especially in the league. The Kilmarnock game, 16,000. The St Mirren game, 17,000. I mean, that's nearly all Aberdeen supporters too, because the visiting support isn't big. There's energy in the stadium. There's colour. You know, they're doing nice initiatives with flags and banners and so on. And of course, it's all because they're winning.
Yeah.
You know?
Is it magic though? I always try and mention to, and Ali and I discuss it ad nauseum with the journalists who are young journalists who start with us in our company. I always say to them, don't let your eyes deceive you and don't get caught up in what I call the noise of people saying things that try and influence the way you report on something. So if a manager like Gordon Strachan was absolutely brilliant at it, he used to come in and paint a picture of a game that I was never at.
We all get that a lot, don't
So
we?
absolutely. So I look at it and I say to myself, have you looked and seen a change in the style, a change that they're on the front foot? What is different about them?
Yeah, when I say magic, I mean the kind of the atmosphere and the energy around the club has been lifted quite dramatically. Two things: they've played 8 games, 5 of them have been at home, so that's advantageous. 5 of them have been against lower league teams. Yes, because of the cups. So that has again been helpful. And they've been patchy in games. There's not been 90 minutes when they've been spectacular all the way through by any means, you know. But against all that, this is a new manager that's come in, new country for him, and he's had a very generous set of fixtures, you know, to get bedded in. But he's made the most of that, you know. Yeah. And 100% they're playing a different way. There is an identity to the team. Now you're right in that tests will come up in October. They play Celtic, Rangers, and Hearts, right? So they've had with all due respect to all the others, they've had a fairly generous set of opening fixtures.
Yeah, to put that in context for anyone who's thinking, okay, give us a flavour of it. It's 3-0 Queen of the South, it's 4-0 East Kilbride, it's 2-1 against Airdrie, it's 6-0 Dumbarton, 2-1 against St Johnstone away, 3-1 against St Mirren, 1-0 Queen's Park, and 2-0 Kilmarnock. So it gives you a kind of a flavour of...
You're also playing teams straight in the back of European football. You like St Mirren and Kilmarnock going up to Pittodrie after.
Totally, yeah. I mean, the cup draws have been Queen's Park at home and Spartans at home, you know, in the knockout rounds. So, you know, honestly, the sun is shining on Jimmy Thelin in that sense.
Yeah.
But what he is doing is he's got them playing in a way that is pretty exciting and entertaining to watch. You know, they work hard at winning the ball back in the other team's half. And because what we'd read about him was that he wants his team attacking in quick transitions, chase teams down, win the ball back and attack quickly. Quick wingers, quick balls into the middle. And all that is happening so far.
Yeah.
And he's getting good tunes out of players that were kind of drifting a little bit or out of the picture at the club.
Do you know what I like about him? Obviously, people are talking about the winger Keskinen and saying, oh, he's great. I like the fact that he's brought in Sivert Nielsen, who's 32. And this is my bugbear with every team is right now, although there has to be that project at clubs now, you know, Philip Clement's mentioned it, Brendan Rodgers totally understands what the Celtic model is, where you have a blueprint where you're going to buy players of a certain age and they're going to have a sellable value. But there is nothing better than having a team which might have a younger age group but has a wee bit of experience and has been over the course before to just calm things down when they need calm down, show you how to make a simple pass. Yeah. He's 32 years of age.
Well, I must admit, the first 2 or 3 times I saw Nielsen, I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure. I mean, he's very stiff. He's not mobile, you know. And he gave the ball away cheaply a couple of times. He got booked, I think. I'm not sure about him. But since then, I've really warmed him. And you can see that he's a leader on the team. You can see that he's Jimmy Thelin's man. He speaks a lot. He's a captain without being the captain, if you know what I mean. He seems to have quite a good anticipation and kind of reading of where the game's going, where the play's going to go, and he's also got a pass in him. If you remember the pass that he put through for McGrath at Perth, it was like wow. And he's played others not quite to that level, but he has played other good through balls. So listen, I can't see him and Shinnie being a partnership that will play 90 minutes every week.
No legs.
There's no legs there.
Yeah.
Although Shinnie is kind of looking a bit re-energised this season. But I mean, you've still Leighton Clarkson's been out injured, and I think he's a terrific. Boy Keskinen, I thought he was quiet at the weekend, but I mean, a spectacular debut. Scoring, well, it's spectacular. He scored against Queen's Park, but it was a last-minute win on his debut.
Yeah. What about the back line? They only conceded 3.
They've only conceded 3. Yeah.
Does it look organised?
Yeah, I think so. There's a bit of height and strength there. I think Rubezic has looked quite solid this season. Gavin Malloy, the young Irish boy that took in, both myself and Hugh were speaking to Willie Miller at an event the other night, and Willie gives Gavin Malloy the seal of approval, so that's kind of good enough for me.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper's good, Meatall from St Mirren. So you know, all the pieces look quite good, but you still need to see them against better, quicker, more dangerous.
I think it can be so important, though, just in terms of setting a tone, just having that time to bed in and just implement a bit of philosophy, just to take people with you. Just you're not fighting against the tide from the off.
I agree that totally as well. I think that's so crucial. Like, if you bring every time when we talk about projects and strategies and plans, we all know they disappear on, you know, away to St Johnstone, get beat 2-1 and no beating Queen's Park at home. I mean, they just disappear at that. Yeah. And the great thing about this appointment is Aberdeen have got a structure here. They've said to him, we've watched this guy and the guy's got a body of work and he's got a CV and you can look at it. And the third thing is, you've got to back him. You don't just back him with cash. In many ways, cash is the easiest thing. All new managers always get a budget, but you back them with patience, because there will be times where you say, well, you know, is this the right way to go? You know, should we be doing this? I mean, Brendan Rodgers had that in the middle. I mean, this is how, you know, I'm not making a point about Aberdeen, I'm making a point about every football club. Brendan Rodgers has that round about Christmas. People are saying, is he the right man here?
Yeah.
Dropping points to hearts.
Yeah. The only problem is, when you do have, you know, similar starts or managers who come in and have a good start, is the fact that the outside noise can have an impact if you start losing. Because we're all guilty of saying, oh, he's not the one for the job. Or, you know, we're now living in an era where suddenly the outside influence is he's got 4 games to change it or he's out. So Aberdeen have been falling foul of that. Now what they're saying to Dave Cormack is, listen, if you don't get this one right, you know, we're not going to be looking at the manager. We're going to look at you and go, wait a minute, you've made 4 or 5 appointments that have absolutely fallen on their backside. You know, and granted, by the way, Michael, we also talk about social media abuse. The minute Jimmy Thelin had 8 wins, we had some of the Aberdeen fans reposting our Journos show saying, I can't believe he never went for a more experienced a Neil Lennon, a Malcolm Mackay or whatever. They're giving it to us right now, which I quite like because, give it to us because at the end of the day, it's not 8 wins. It's October, November, it's December. It's let's see where he goes with it. I think we genuinely need a strong Aberdeen because the league's poor. The league is woeful last season, and we need to see improvement.
And to go back to the point about the attendances, I mean, poor Aberdeen, you're down to 12,000, and you don't have that energy that you get from a strong Hearts and a strong Hibs and a strong Aberdeen because the fan bases are there. I think there is a kind of scepticism or wariness of overseas managers in Scotland, and there's almost a kind of expectation that, what does he know, and he'll be found out and all that. And listen, maybe it'll come for Thelin, but I think these opening games have been important for him so that the wider Scottish football public, but also his players, think, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
That is the vital thing, the players.
I mean, from the journalist, this is the Journos show, right? I think he's going to be hopeless for the Journos site. He's not interesting in that sense. He doesn't give you a line. He's not outspoken. We're led to believe he won't have a go at referees and stuff like that. So he'll be hard work.
Do you think maybe Hugh and I need to go up there and just annoy him?
I could do that on my own, to be fair.
You could just watch this. That'll do it.
Because I'm looking and I'm saying to myself, I'm thinking of you here, right? And I always, when I looked at the games last week, I thought they're giving it to his tight. I thought, great, I love that part of football because I love a noise up and a fight. So I'm looking, I'm saying to myself, oh God, they've played nobody. And then I'm looking and thinking, okay, Motherwell, Spartans, Dundee. And then I looked and I thought, Hearts, Celtic, Dundee United, Rangers, end of October. Now, if we're seeing
Hearts Aberdeen are 8 points ahead of.
Well, if we're seeing win, if they win out of October, suddenly it's open top bus, and you and I are at the P&J for another big tribute dinner.
Obviously, they're not going to win through October. Win. But let's see how they get on. Let's see how they compete against the old firm, especially. That'll be interesting. I think it's right. I'm still looking at it and thinking, right, to what extent do we need to see more here, Do
you think they need more players just before that window?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they need another centre-half. I think they need a right winger because the boy Keskinen played right but will move to the left. They also need to get Nisbet fit, who I think if they get him fit and he stays fit...
Good signing.
Oh, yeah. A dozen goals, 15 goals, whatever. He's proven it in this league,
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how it all goes. I genuinely think we need teams to take... the odd punch at Celtic and Rangers. We need a scalp along the way. It makes it interesting.
Absolutely, but it's generations, really. But we know we had that purple patch of St Johnstone winning a cup double. But the history tells us it's hugely difficult, and history tells Aberdeen as well. It's been hugely difficult for them. I think Derek McInnes, who's an outstanding manager up there, what did he get? He got one League Cup. I think the Aberdeen fans would, and they're always tired with this. Oh, they're hard to please. They want Fergie years, and they don't. Any Aberdeen fan I ever spoke to would scoff at that. But I think Aberdeen fans would. I think if you say to them, right, good strong third place, win your league, as I always say, win your league, which is third place, get to a cup final challenge, maybe even win a cup somehow just on 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That'd be an outstanding season. But third place would be more than a good start.
We must get... can we book you, Michael, for the Thursday, the 31st of October? We need to book you.
The day after the Rangers game.
It's the Thursday. Yes, it's the day. It's the day after. It's the day after that run. It's a Pataudry. If you get him on the Thursday, that's out of October.
I won't be back.
I can't wait.
If they won.
I know I can't. Oh, you will, Peter. I know you've got 4, but I'm coming in as the 5th man. No, it'll be interesting to see exactly how it all pans out. But we definitely do need a strong Aberdeen. It's something that I've been craving for, and I've got lots of mates up there who absolutely are craving just that ability to compete and take a scalp here and there. You can give us your thoughts on that as well, Dons fans. What do you make of it all? This is the Journos. Michael Grant, delighted he's with us. Hugh McDonald, as ever. Alison McConnell. We like to talk football and all the various topics that may well attract your attention. We'd love to hear from you. You can put your comment in the comments section below and hit that subscribe button. If you, there is actually a little comedy sketch that I showed Hugh this morning, which again sums up the madness of sometimes how life can change in a sliding doors moment. And basically, in still game, the guy sells the car to somebody, hands over the cash, and as soon as he's got the cash, a large DIY pack comes through the top of the roof and smashes into the car. And I think it sums up Matt O'Reilly's luck, because
Celtic was checking the ink was dry in the check before he was up the tunnel.
He's been the talk of all of us for so long. When's he moving? It's coming. It's imminent. It's on its way. Some people taking flyers. It's definitely happening this week. But he's gone. He goes into a game against Crawley, 6 minutes into his debut. You have a situation where the Crawley captain just comes in and smashes him.
Straight red card. The boy never even got booked.
Jay Williams
it was a terrible.
I can't believe the challenge.
It was very reckless.
He's on the. It's amazing how that moment, and I wish him a speedy recovery. But the manager, by all accounts, saying it's a bad one.
Yeah, I think on a personal level, your sympathy is with the player. Brendan Rodgers spoke on Sunday about his professionalism and his conduct throughout what's obviously been quite a trying few months. And I think January was the same. He was linked with various clubs and knuckled down, and there would be no accusations of his head being turned. He said very professional. So I think you would have a huge amount of sympathy for him. Also, just straight into the Denmark squad too. And if it looks as though he's going to be out for some considerable time, it'll be devastating on a personal level for him.
You couldn't make it up, Hugh, could you? I mean, the lad has been without injury. And he's not one of those people that courts controversy.
No.
He's just kept quiet with dignity and left with dignity as well.
If you talk to anybody within Celtic as well, they're really praiseworthy of his, not just the football stuff, but the people at the foundation, the people that have got to go up and ask footballers to do something in their spare time. They talk really highly of him. Two things I think his head went a wee bit in January, quite rightly, when this is a kid that's played for NK Dons, and suddenly his agent's saying Atletico Madrid want you.
Yeah.
So I think
he accepted. He came out and spoke about that. It was really difficult.
That's fine. I mean, they're human beings.
Yeah.
But he didn't start going a stop. He said, no, that's the decision, and he had a terrific end to the season, absolutely terrific end to the season, and he had a terrific pre-season as well, because everybody knew Celtic were going to sell him. But there's still that moment in the guy's head where he says, just think, this is life-changing. This is generational wealth he's going to get. Yeah. He's going to get his grandchildren, if he ever decides that, are going to be wealthy because of this decision made in 2024. So a normal human being would be saying, I'm maybe not going to but subconsciously, I'm not going to get into the tackles. I'm not going to run about daft in a wet afternoon or whatever. And he didn't do that. I think the point about there's 2 points I finished with, and Matt. The first was how appalling that referee is. That referee should be sanctioned for that. I mean, that's just appalling. Everybody makes mistakes. But if you allow that kind of tackle to go on under your nose, if you see the referee's position and say that is not a booking, somebody should go out and say, I think I'm in the wrong game. And the second thing is the brutality of football, and that people will always say about players that leave clubs, they're only thinking about themselves and they don't want to play for the jersey, and they say to themselves, that's the game. We're talking serious, that kind of tackle can be a career ender. Yeah. It can certainly be a career limiter. So football players are right, and it's a duty to themselves and their families to make the most of it when they have it.
Yeah, I think hopefully he recovers. I think he'll be a good player for Brighton, certainly on the evidence of what I've witnessed. Sometimes though, Michael, you can actually move in the transfer window and end up being a complete dud and be a millionaire.
Was this Michael's move to the Times?
The Herald to the Times. You're only half right in that case.
I'm like, only you could see it that way. But I'm looking at. I was trying to come up with some of the best and worst deadline day transfers because there will be a few here. Much to obviously Hugh and Alison's annoyance with me, I'm usually able to predict them. But I'm looking and I've picked up a wee list here of transfers. Deadline day, last day. I mean, I think Alison and I can remember waiting outside various clubs.
Ferguson at 2 minutes to midnight. That was in January.
Barry Ferguson joined Rangers late on from Blackburn Rovers.
Robbie Keane.
Robbie Keane's the
Was
one.
that midnight?
Robbie Keane's the one I remember because we were all huddled in a wee room and we were looking out over.
Maybe not the right word, Hugh.
And well, some of us were, and were
That's the right word.
clattering out the stuff as thousands of Celtic fans. It was the second coming.
Yeah.
And Robbie Keane. I mean, Robbie Keane was a great signing in so many ways, but not probably on the park.
Played in a draw at Rugby Park for his debut. Was there?
Yeah. Andy Carroll to Liverpool.
Okay.
Yeah, what were you going to say there, Michael?
I'm sure I've got a bad memory for these things, but was Bellamy a deadline day?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Bellamy was another one. Yeah. But I think, I might be corrected here, but I think both of them were deadline day signings who went on to lose and be in a losing league side. It was Rangers that won the league.
Bellamy got injured at the end of the season,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's a what if, but I think if Bellamy had stayed fit, it might have turned out different. I think Bellamy is one of the best strikers that have played in Scotland. There you go.
Yeah.
He was that good.
Call. Fernando Torres to Chelsea, is that a shout?
What, as a failure or as...
Well, it's interesting to see how Torres is one of those players. It's interesting how people perceive maybe that he wasn't the player he was from Liverpool when he moved to Chelsea. But in the end, if you looked at his medal cabinet, it's to die for.
His numbers are probably okay at Chelsea off the top of my head, but I mean, it was so spectacular at Liverpool that everything else after that seemed to kind of...
But if I think of Fernando Torres at Chelsea, I think of him rounding the Barcelona goalkeeper to send them into the Champions League final. You know, and you think to yourself, what more can you do? Stefan Honcho, do you remember him?
Yeah, the centre back.
He signed for Celtic. That brought a bit of silence. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, vaguely, that's in my synapses are moving.
That didn't work out.
I barely remember that.
Eric Jemba, do you remember
Jemba?
Jemba? I don't think
So
Jemba
good
would have got
in
my...
England
He wouldn't have got a game in my five-a-side team.
Who's the boy, Chelsea boy that Brendan Rodgers brought up? I'm sure it was a last day transfer in his first.
Masonda.
Charlie
His first thought he said, we've signed Messi.
There was about 15 teams in for him.
Charlie Masonda.
Unluckily, we got him.
It is, and then as I was researching and cross-referencing everything, one of them came up, the 5 Newcastle players who moved to Rangers in the Andy...
I
Andy
forgot
about that as well.
Yeah. You really should try and, cross-reference things and maybe write packages and things. That's a great thing. You prolong your career, you three.
Yeah, so we've got to not only predict what subject you're going to come up with. So let's spend next week
Telepathy.
the 10 best football films that have been adapted from German novels. Just in case Peter brings that up as the 10 best next
It's a very good
It's going to be a long week.
By the way, can I just say something to you? It does test your overall football knowledge, Michael, and you've been excellent today.
I was going to... The joke was always that it was a van load, wasn't it, that came out from Newcastle?
It was 5 of them, honestly.
A Sports Direct van. But I think one of those guys went on to be...
A good player.
Good?
Yeah, one of them did. And it escapes me who the guy was.
Your viewers will help us out.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's the other thing about football being that Diallo's played for Manchester United.
Yeah.
And he was, I mean, we're talking about, we've got a Glasgow derby coming up. He played in one and everybody said, I mean, he did freeze that day, to be fair to the lad. But they said, well, he'll never make it. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, he's now playing for Manchester United.
The funny thing was, when United played Rangers in pre-season, he made a mess of Jeffy. Now, Jeffy's actually now come on and was looking decent. But that day, Diallo made a mess of him, and you think, on 2 elements that was interesting. It was interesting on Jeffy. It was also interesting that Diallo had kicked on since he was at Rangers.
Haris Vukic.
Yeah.
Then Remy Street, Gail Bigarimana, Kevin Mbabu and Shane Ferguson. I think Vukic was the player who went
was
on.
quite talented, if I
he
remember
was,
rightly.
he was the talented one out of them all, out of the 5 players. I think Rangers would have loved to have kept him, but that's the name that was bugging me, thinking who was that player. But again, sometimes, that deadline day is maybe you've been working on it for forever and a day, or in some cases it's an act of desperation.
Well, what cases?
I give you Merouane Fellaini. He's only signing that Man United were able to get over the line,
That was just an infrastructure collapse.
Yeah.
You had a new manager in who didn't have probably the power, or certainly didn't have the power that a previous manager had. Didn't have the backing from the world. And I don't just mean in cash, but I mean in Kenyon had. Gill had left and Kenya was coming about, so Gill had left at the same time as Sir Alex, so he was left. David Moyes was left out with the washing.
Yeah, I don't think it was Kenyon. Kenyon had gone to Chelsea. It was the other boy, the boy that had just left not that long ago. I think he was
Woodward.
Was it Woodward? Aye.
Hopeless.
But I was going to say though, in terms of your kind of pack of cards thing, I mean, the O'Riley injury, if it is quite serious, and we hope it's not, but they're saying that one of the consequences of that is that Billy Gilmore might not be allowed to leave for Napoli because Brighton will need him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know how close that deal is anyway, but they were saying that it might now fall apart because...
Yeah, and in his last game he was outstanding.
Gilmore.
And it brings me nicely, honestly, you think Michael was part of the script here, but it brings me nicely to Scotland because quite simply Steve Clarke's been out. We were all waiting and thinking, well, everybody's going to get a chance to say to Steve Clarke, you've got 2 years left in your contract, are you going to stay? And what does the future hold? Because he's got crucial games coming up, and I just wonder, Ali, does the manager have to change, or does he have to just keep going the way that he goes about his business to try and get us to qualify, which is a kind of a dogged, cautious approach?
He won't change. Whether or not he should is another question entirely, but I wouldn't expect any changes in style at all. I wouldn't expect to see a different kind of way of Scotland playing than what we've been used to under Steve Clarke. I think what is interesting is I think now he's under a bit of pressure for these games because of what happened at the Euros and just how abject Scotland were at the Euros. I think statistically the worst performing team at the competition, and I think that invites a bit of pressure. Yesterday, of course, the first time that we've heard from Steve Clarke since then. I think there are lingering question marks that are there over the squad, the direction that the squad are going in, and what's to come next, and in his suitability to lead and take the country possibly to another major tournament.
I agree with that. I think he's under severe pressure. I thought his press conference and his remarks were very poor yesterday. It's all right for him to say, that he didn't have any thoughts about going. That's fine, that's great. But other elements of it, I'm not talking about contrition or penance, but an acceptance of what went heavily wrong. I thought when he said to somebody who was asking about, what about the Tartan Army, and he said, have you spoken to all of them? And as I said earlier, I was standing in a play part in Stuttgart, and I talked to 1,257 of them, and not one. I mean, we were there, Peter. We saw it in railway stations, airports, pubs, bars, walking down whatever street you wanted to walk. You had a Tartan Army who were really there for a jolly. They weren't there to win this tournament. And seen set in certain ways, I think there was a lot of people who were very, very sceptical getting out of the group. So it wasn't like there was this big tsunami of overhype. People were there for a good time, pleased that Scotland had got. But the poverty of the performance, the poverty of ambition, the poverty of performance was such that the time was just... people were appalled, but people were really angry at it.
I think you needed something to hang a bit of hope on. Just one moment. Even the goal that came, you're not there was nothing to really ignite
exactly. See,
a bit of optimism.
I was doing a podcast the other week there, and it was on the 1998 Scotland v Brazil game. This is Brazil up against Cafu, Carlos, Rivaldo, Bebeto, and the original Ronaldo, right?
Want to win it.
So I said, I'll watch this game. So I watched it on YouTube, 90 minutes of the game. Scotland beat no problem at all. That Brazil team goes on to lose in the final. But there was moments in that game where you went, oh yeah, I'll take that home. Scotland had chances, they had a strategy, they were going for it, scored a goal, stuck in there. Honestly, Peter, we were there for 10 days in Germany. You were there for 10 days in Germany. What's your Scotland highlight in Germany? Seriously, I'm not trying to be...
It's nothing on the field. I mean, my big takeaway was the support, the size of it.
Yeah, but can I ask you something, Michael? And I think this is where I think we've got to defend the Tartan Army. Sometimes there's a perception as if it is a piss-up and people just want to go and have a laugh and they enjoy them and then they'll take whatever they get. The perception that I think for the majority of people who are sensible people who, yes, crave a holiday away with a Scotland top on and they have their kilts on, that's fine. If that then, is a perception that these people are all dimwits, it's so far from the truth. The real thing that I sensed from out with the stadium, as Hugh's talking about, because we were literally all over the place asking questions, and in the stadium, the one recurring theme was Switzerland, make a change, be positive, get somebody on the park. It's 1-1, there's 15 minutes to go, we can win this. Just do something positive. Yeah. And then Hungary, you could have written the script because he's already displayed woeful against Germany, cautious against Switzerland. Hungary, sit back and hope something happens in the last minutes. And then the Tartan Army are looking at the game against Hungary and thinking, 76 minutes, Stuart Armstrong. That's the first substitution.
Yeah. There was nothing. I mean, Hughes, poverty is exactly the phrase. There was nothing that you could come away with as a Scotland fan, as a Scottish person from that tournament, other than supporters. I think, yeah, that was. I felt good about us there. I felt that was something that was. We've got that. If we've got nothing else, we've got that. At least we did this or that. There wasn't anything. I mean, it was you were leaving with your head bowed and your tail between your legs, having offered nothing to the tournament. I mean,
do you agree with Ali?
Yeah. I mean, the Hungary game. After about half an hour, I could see what he was trying to do, because actually they had the most of the possession and they were knocking it around and you think, okay, but this isn't going anywhere.
Yes.
And half an hour later, it's still not going anywhere. He talked yesterday about we need to be more creative. Obviously we need to start making chances. But he also said, we need to be kind of don't turn our back on these players that have achieved so much for us, all that. And I think that's probably the true Steve Clarke mentality, that these guys have got us to 2 tournaments. I'm not disloyal to them. It's never revolution with Clarke. It's evolution, But I don't know how it changes if you play the same way. We've got that way of playing that we do kind of sit back and we sweep forward and counter attacks, and the ball's played back to McTominay and McGinn, and that's where a lot of the goals come from, and it's where the only goal came from at the Euros.
But we craved James Forrest going on with maybe Lawrence Shankland. I looked at that entire squad. Apart from Forrest, who's got a trick, not one player could beat a man. No. Not one player could square somebody up and think, I'm going to beat you for skill. So I didn't know where the goal was coming from.
Exactly.
And our goals that we got were fortuitous in the fact that I think an own goal, a German scores the other one.
We're all putting probably a ridiculous amount of expectation on Ben Doak because he can beat a player.
Yes.
He's 18-year-old, he's a laddie, who knows what he'll become, Gold is creative. I don't think he can. It's not so much that he beats a player, but he's quite cute with his passing.
Yeah, he's like do you tell you something? And I'm not being dismissive of his qualities because he's far away, but he's almost like a light for light trying to replace Callum McGregor.
Yeah, I think he's a bit more creative, I think, than McGregor and further up the pitch.
Well, he's not playing at a level that you would think. McGregor's played at a better level.
Oh God!
And consistently, I know Dundee United fans and some cousins of Ryan Gauld and some Tartan Army. You're a great player, Michael, when you're far away.
Well, he's not. He's had an impressive internet lobby.
Yes, absolutely.
Social media lobby in his case.
McGregor's been consistent playing Champions League football, playing internationals. In fact, I looked at his average. His average is 54 games a season, 90 minutes. With the odd substitution because he's knackered at the tail end of the season. But he's full on.
But if you look, obviously the tournament was just a bit of a mess, to be honest, and pretty lamentable. But it's 1 win in 12 games now. You know,
Yeah.
and yes, some of them are against elite opposition, but some of them weren't. You know, we lost
Northern
to
Ireland.
Northern Ireland.
I don't think he's sackable unless he loses the first couple of games woefully.
Yeah, listen, he's rock solid with the SFA, as we all know at the moment. But momentum gathers. If the fans turn against them, the other thing that, and this is probably quite clever from the SFA, they sold these packages
Yes.
of tickets
Before.
before the Euros, so there was still the feel good factor. So the crowds for the Hampden games and these Nations League games should be pretty decent.
Yeah.
What the atmosphere will be like is another matter, because if they struggle against Poland, struggle against Portugal, struggle against Croatia, and it goes from 1 win in 12 to 1 win in 15, 16, 17.
Do you think he needs to change? Alison said she doesn't think he will change. Do you think Steve Clarke, now this is the thing about great managers, or managers who have longevity, sometimes along the way you have to have that, sometimes a wee bit of luck, but humility to say, right, that plan's not working.
100% I think they have to change, or at least have a plan B.
Yeah.
Because, Tierney's still out, so you think, well, why are you playing a back three if you're not having to try and make a place for Tierney in the side? But it's not working anymore, Peter, the way that we're playing, you know. The last comfortable win was against Cyprus last September, you know. We're not creating chances. We're taking some heavy beatings in some of these friendlies.
Yeah.
Didn't create chances against Hungary. Didn't create an awful lot against Switzerland, albeit it was a better performance. Germany, they just kind of fell apart straight away.
Aye.
I think Steve Clarke, if he goes down sticking to his guns on one way of playing, John McGinn stopped scoring goals. You know, you can't just say, Scott McTominay, you're the only guy that gets goals for us.
Yeah.
You've got to have more than that at international level.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Hugh, of the calibre of players that are playing in the Nations League, right now, you're looking and saying, well, Lawrence Shanklin isn't scoring goals. Doesn't look like scoring goals.
His problem now is the World Cup's a hard cup to qualify for. If you look at the process for qualifying for the World Cup, it's difficult to qualify for the World Cup. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah.
Qualifying for the Euros, as I said earlier, you rolled a double six and you were in the Euros. It was more difficult not to qualify for the Euros than qualify. And I'm not trying to diminish anything, but I'm exaggerating to make a point. It was much easier to qualify for the Euros. Clarke's big problem, before he has any introspection about his principles, his approach to the game, what he might have got wrong, is he's got two problems. His good players are getting worse, just by age. But they're not going to get any better. And the young players are not flooding through. We're sitting here.
Do you remember we did the Journos last year, and I said to you, is he just at that point where we've hit a purple patch of players?
And it just lasts.
Yeah. Listen, there was a case that the team peaked. You know, when
Spain?
They beat Spain, or maybe arguably Oslo. Well, that wasn't a great performance, a great result.
Yeah.
You're right, the team is getting kind of old. There's a lot of guys late 20s, 30.
I actually wondered when Callum McGregor announced his retirement, I wondered if there might have been a few others. If
He
you
was
think
asked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
So, no, there's been no indication of that, you know.
like the likes of Andy Robertson and even John McGinn, where you think, you maybe want the longevity of your own domestic career.
And they're playing at a very, very high level, and they're going to be loaded with games. You know, they're playing Champions League in Europe now. McGinn's moved to another era, and I don't know what age is John. John will be the late.
He's coming up 30, I think.
So he's at he's not looking at the end, but he's nearer the end than he is at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we're talking about young guys coming through, and we're talking about, and I'm as excited about anybody with Doak, particularly when I saw Doak making his Liverpool debut at 17, 18, which is what great players do. Great players make their debut for great clubs at a young age. But if you're pinning everything on an 18-year-old that's got 3 Premier League games and a couple of League Cups down there, you're going, my God. And of course his star, I'm not saying he's on the wane, but some of the shine's been taken off it. It looks as if Richard Hughes at Liverpool has, looked at him and said, well, he's one that can certainly go out and loan, etc. So
Yep, you know, the problems that some of the problems that we had at the Euros still exist for these Nations League games. You know, Hickey's not back. We lost Tierney for about half of the tournament.
Was Ferguson's.
So he's out. Ferguson can't come in. I'd like to see him, you know, just mix things up a little bit. I mean, get Christie deeper in midfield where he's playing for his team. Supposedly really well. Get him beside Gilmore. Just try it, you know, just try and freshen things up a little bit that way.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be something different in the final third, particularly.
I don't
just
think
there was
options, Ali.
But I think you have to experiment with the players that you've got and play them to the suitability to try and get the best out of them. Like Christie, that's an option, playing Christie in a deeper role. But I think there was so little to be excited about in the final third. Just so few genuine chances.
Yeah, and that point wasn't any great surprise because when Hugh and I went over, and as soon as we touched down in Munich, when we did our first show, we said it's going to be tough because we can't defend and we can't score. We knew right away there was going. We just wanted something of what we had at our disposal, but we knew there was a problem before they took to the field. We didn't expect first game abject misery, woeful. We didn't expect no real ambition in the second game, and then the third game for me was that's exactly what I expected.
I think he was unlucky. I mean, to be fair, I'm being really tough on Clarke. I actually like Steve Clarke, and I know Steve. We all know he's a good coach. But I thought the whole thing, the whole Scotland from top to bottom was abysmal in Germany, from top to bottom. To be fair to him, though, or to have this caveat about it, was that his game plan, and he kind of gently alluded to this, his game plan went up in the air with injuries, because I think what's really important in the Clarke team is your wide guys in the five. I think Hickey, Patterson and Tierney all gone out, and that is, was and I think Dykes was a big one, because see Dykes, the amount of times, even against Germany, and I'm not slagging Che Adams because he's good quality, he's played in Serie A, good, but that ball where you're just panicking and you just want to hit it up the channel,
I think
you've got a chance if Dykes is there.
I buy into Hickey, Tierney and Dykes. I don't buy into Patterson because he was woeful before it.
Hickey was an enormous loss, I think, because it meant that teams playing against us could think, like, okay, Robertson's the guy we need to worry about, and just try and nullify him.
Yeah.
He's got the right.
There won't be anything coming up the other side.
Okay, so we're not filled with optimism. I still think it's right that we continue with him. I don't think it's a need for
Steve
change
Clarke.
until you...
Yeah, I think he's probably earned the right for it. I think he's got credit in the bank. I think he probably deserves another crack at it.
Yeah, me too, but I do think he needs to start thinking about
I think you need to see that there have been lessons learned from two really tough tournaments, where Scotland have went and not performed anywhere near what you would expect the sum of the parts to be from that squad.
Listen, we know the resources are thin.
Yeah.
We know especially the attacking resources are thin, but I mean that's the gig. I mean that's the job, to try and find a way to make chances and not be one-dimensional, which I kind of think we are.
Yeah, to manage differently. We'll find out. A couple of things before we finish. You can give us your thoughts on Scotland, whether you think there are players out there that could actually be thrown into the mix to gain a little bit of experience. Could they be thrown in right away in these Nations League matches to see how they fare, or is there a need for tried and trusted with maybe the odd tweak here and there? It's the big dilemma. Do you think he is worthy of finishing out the 2-year contract, or is it a case of game by game, wait and see how it all goes? The dilemmas of being not only a member of the Tartan Army, but following them and writing and talking about them, it's always difficult. Couple of points. First one, prompted, guys, because we go to games and we sometimes sit there and we're ready to start writing or start broadcasting about a special moment in the game. I was at the Hibs game, and obviously David Gray's under a wee bit of pressure. I've watched Dundee 2 or 3 times this season and thoroughly enjoyed watching them. But every time it gets to a free kick, I'm thinking to myself, can anybody actually take a free kick? And what are the chances of actually success? And this is something that I think is a real problem. I can only think of one name that springs to mind that places an emphasis on the need to try and win a game from a set piece, and that's Austin McPhee, who clearly has earned a living and a niche in that. The big guy used to be there, he was a striker for England, coach. what's his name again?
Oh God, he was at Aberdeen.
Yeah, he could have been in the Wham video. Loved himself, great lad, but absolutely model.
Alan
Russell. Yes. So, but again, I had a chat with him one day, and it was really interesting what Alan was saying, which was, he worked out the heat map of a striker and where he is at his most effective, and where he's likely to get a rebound. It was almost a statistic that he was looking at that John Robertson had discovered 20 years earlier in his head, right? But suddenly somebody put it on paper. And the same for me as free kicks. Luke McCann had one, bent it around the wall, hits the base of the post, okay, still misses, 20 yards out. Then right on the half-time, Hibs are absolutely murder, but up steps Martin Boyle and curls one beautifully into the back of the net, and I thought, great, he's good at them, but what's his success rate? And what is the overall success rate? And why is there no invention with free kicks? I just think it amazes me that from set pieces there is not enough work done on creativity to catch out the opponent. And everybody looks at it. You watch the free kicks this weekend, and they'll get the free kick 20 yards out, and it's one guy who tries to bend the ball over the wall. Here's the stats. Give me your thoughts. Of them all, percentage of free kick success from a straight shot at goal, 10% and below. That's conducted from 2009 excuse me, to 2017. Now that 10%, you're talking about, you're saying, well, who are the really good ones? James Ward-Prowse is dangerous. He hit 15 of 70. 15 of 70.
That's terrific.
So his is 21.4%. The others, 15 is as nearest to him as James Maddison over that period. But I'm looking in Scotland, I'm thinking to myself, there's not that many. There's not that many great free kick specialists. Why don't you come up with a bit of creativity? And Michael and I were talking about it. Argentina against England, 98 World Cup. Simeone peels off the wall, they play the pass, and he scores.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's something different.
And it's when you mentioned it, I had to look at it again, and it's a beautiful goal to watch, because it's like, oh yeah, I just love it when forwards do that, and it's just nobody saw that coming, including us.
Yeah. I allow you to get into Aberdeen mode now. Share it with us.
No. I mean, I just mentioned to you about the famous Fergie free kick routine when they mess it up, and so that was unorthodox thinking at free kicks. I would guess, Peter, you're saying, but why are they just shooting rather than trying something unorthodox? I suppose when you shoot, the defence is 10 yards away, the wall's 10 yards away. It's a chance. Statistically, I bet you if you try something else, it's probably even lower.
That's what I was just about to say.
Possibly.
It was,
because
But lower than, I mean, by the way, 10% is the average, but it's not the norm.
No.
It's 7 and 6% success rate.
But
There's got to be something you've got to try differently.
we'll all go to games this weekend, and every time there's a corner, especially the Old Firm game, corner. The percentage of goals scored from corners is about 3%, right? I don't mean curled in from the corner. I'm talking about a cross in.
that leads to it. It leads to a goal. Yeah.
3%, right? But we're conditioned to kind of react as if a corner is no far off a penalty.
Yes.
So you're right. I can understand you thinking, well, let's try and mix it up a wee bit. But I would have thought once you start to become more intricate with moves, it gives defences
It's more complicated.
to react and close you down.
Corners are the one I think that teams should be a bit more experimental with. Yeah. I think so many corners are
Well, Aberdeen
so
wants to run on a train.
Can I take
Remember the train? They used to go on a big train.
train,
6 of them all started around. We think, what are they doing? What's Russell Anderson?
And the queue, remember there was a few people down the queue, like one day.
Yes.
There was a queue for that as well.
Train never at the station.
The one I always think about is, believe it or not, is throw-ins. Because throw-ins, I always think, and you can see with Ange teams, and you see it continued with top-level teams now, they've got guys, and you saw it famously with Mourinho's Spurs, was it? That at a throw-in, you've got two things. You've got direct possession, it's your possession, and you can make a clinical decision, plus you've got no offside. So if you're on attack, and you've got a quick one, all your players can go beyond.
Yeah.
You don't. So the guy doesn't know, and you can just throw beyond. And I know now. Well, Liverpool have got throw-in specialists now. They've got. I mean, you talk about Austin McPhee. This guy, this guy and say, "How do you take a corner?" Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm way out my ballpark. I'm the 3-0-in man.
Throw-in, unless it's Rory Delap, statistically from before, the big launch into the box. I mean, I think that's how St Johnstone lost their goal at
Dundee
the weekend.
United, big
was
deep
a big
throw-in.
long throw-in. But again, statistically and creativity, we talk about how difficult it is. You're talking about percentages of what the success rate is doing something else. I agree with you. Maybe it is a low percentage, but any chance of trying it? Because what we are seeing is a non-stop. Who was it that said, if you keep doing something the same and getting it wrong, it's insanity?
Usually Einstein's usually ascribed it, but apparently Einstein said he didn't. There you go.
Yeah, well, he took 3 free kicks and he just kept trying to bend the
The
wall.
classic example to illustrate your case is Ronaldo at the Euros.
Aye. It was
When he
almost
just battered
farcical.
free kick after free kick after
Over
free
the
kick
bar.
over the wall, and because he's Ronaldo and he's the alpha male on the team,
He's still taking them.
got to take every one.
We're actually talking about that last night. We all played with Ronaldo. He was the boy that used to come down to the backyard, and it was his ball, and he could take all the free kicks. And they'd see when the game was over, he went up, he decided the game over. He said, "I'm going up for my tea," and he walked away with the ball.
Well, here's the top 10. Here's the top 10. Shut it, Ali. Here's the top 10 free kick takers. Ronaldinho, Beckham,
Yes.
Del Piero,
You haven't even mentioned the best one yet.
Nakamura, phenomenal. Maradona, Messi, Zico, Mihailovic, Koeman, and Juninho of Lyon.
I think he was the best.
Yes, Juninho is the best statistically of them
Is he?
all.
Aye.
He's absolutely out on his own.
I saw him. I mean, I thought he was almost like if it was an American football team, he'd still be playing.
Now-
Because you'd bring him on for the set, please.
Now, if we're talking percentages, you just don't get a Juninho every now and then coming into your team. So, any chance of varying it, any chance of maybe an Ernie Hunt, any chance of somebody flicking it up and then somebody
Who
belting
flicked it
over the top
up? We're
of the
talking
wall?
about football knowledge
Willie
here.
Carr. You, honestly, have a word for yourself, will you?
You've just lost your viewers here.
Yeah, exactly. But genuinely, a bit of creativity, do something different instead of getting the same outcome. Just before we finish, and I think it would be remiss of me not to mention, in this journalistic world, we all love to get the scoop, beat each other from time to time on various stories, get a pat in the back. But we all come together when we lose someone, and Rodger Baillie sadly passed away at the age of 84 this week. He was president of the SFWA. He worked at the Glasgow Evening News, the Daily Record, the Sunday Mirror, the Sun, the Sunday Times. I think from everybody in the football show, our thoughts go out to his family. We know Michael, his son as well, he works in the industry, and all his friends and all his associates, because he'll be greatly missed. If I could just offer a tribute on the basis that I thought he spoke eloquently, and he always had a smile on his face when I met him, and there was just something really nice and decent every time I met the man, and he obviously was a good wordsmith.
And he was very waspish as well. So the greatest tribute, and it won't be everybody that works in our trade will probably nod at this, was he's a guy you would gravitate towards in a press room, because you'd all go, so I have to have a word with Rodger, see what's going on, and there would be a bit of gossip and all this. And he's almost like a historical figure now, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. This is a guy who had, close and deep friendships with some of the greatest players, managers, at a time when we were the greatest. I mean, this is a guy who was Jim Baxter's best man. This was a guy who was saved from drowning by Sean Fallon, because the Celtic players who loved him threw him into a pool thinking he would swim, and Sean Fallon was looking and says, "Do you know what? I don't think he can." So there was that intimacy, that closeness with great players, which is gone. That and it ain't coming back. The two things, because I always remember him at a Hall of Fame do, and I was amazed by this, because I came into sports writing very much later. And I was sitting having my meal, And the line of people coming over to the table to talk to him, Hugh McIlvanney, Hugh Keevins, Glenn Gibbons, Rodger Baillie. Seriously, it was like, I could rattle off my head, it was Dave Mackay, Tommy Gemmell, Graham Souness, John Gregg, Billy McNeil, Willie Miller. They were all coming over the table, hey, you all getting on? And
Yeah.
can you imagine that now? It's impossible to imagine.
It's the equivalent, really, Michael. I know it's far-fetched, but he's just delivered a line there that I thought to myself, I can't actually think of me getting a phone call from Brendan Rodgers saying, look, would you be my best man?
Unlikely.
It's, that Jim Bagster, his best man's Rodger Baillie. I mean, come on.
And
It's a different era.
Different, and he was in that era promoted things like promoted things like not only just did you know the players, but you knew the background stories, and you could write with real authority what was going on. There was a quid pro quo, we know that.
Yeah.
But they knew what was going on, you knew who to phone.
Yeah, but one of the great things about Rodger, for all his legendary career, was his enthusiasm that continued right to the end. I mean, I think the last time I would have been in the same press box as him was bizarrely a game at Inverness against Partick Thistle in the Scottish Cup, right? January, the weather's horrendous. I was up there because it suited me family reasons for a Sunday paper. And there was nobody else who'd come up from the Central Belt. You know, it was all the kind of just the local freelancers were doing it. And Rodger Baillie turns up about 10 to 3, you know, and you think he'd be well into his 70s then, you know, and he had retired, he was doing bits and pieces of freelance work. And he sat outside and the weather was pouring down, he had his hood on and all that, and I spoke to him and he always still had a smile on his face about it. And you think, you didn't need to do that. Yeah. But he still had the enthusiasm and he wanted to be involved, he wanted to kind of just still be tuned in.
It's a great thing, because I remember probably one of my last conversations, or probably the second last conversation when I met him, we were talking about it, there was a wee pause, and almost conspiratorially leaned into me and he says, we've been awful lucky, haven't we? And I went, absolutely, absolutely. And I think if you can say that about your life, we've been very, very lucky. And I certainly share my gratitude and my luck, but and I was moved, because that's when we were having that conversation, he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
You know, he knew it was coming.
When he was at his peak, Ali, he's managed to see Celtic win the European Cup.
It was in the dressing room after the game too.
He's managed to see Rangers. He's managed to see Scotland qualify for World Cups as if it was the norm.
He was at 5 World Cups, I think he covered. Yeah, he was there for a golden age of Scottish football and Scottish football writing. And I think his passing, Alan Herron's passing, I think there's a whole generation of old school journalists who had an access that none of us in a contemporary level could ever dream of.
Yeah, absolutely.
The door closed on a different era entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to every one of you for your lovely tributes. This programme is the Journos. We'll dedicate it to the late, great Rodger Baillie, and also mention our condolences, thoughts and prayers to his family and friends. Thank you for listening and watching.